when David asked how many of you in the room are marketers, how many hands went up? There was one, JP over here. The funny thing is we do invite marketers here, and a lot of them say, wow, I would love to actually come and learn all these trends, but it'd be my personal version of hell being surrounded by 175 CEOs of vendors, all one time. Because anyway. But we do talk to marketers all the time because we love to hear what are they struggling with, what are the vendors that they have success with, and what vendors they not. And my number one is the one marketer in the room. So Joseph, come on up. So JP is from Cisco, and Cisco is super interesting to us to understand what they do because there's one of these firms that they are a B2C company and a B2B company all in one. And so Joseph he works for the CMO, Karen Walker, and runs all of the systems, for marketing. So
great.
Thanks to have you here. And also to his credit, so he committed to coming here and then realized he had a customer event in Vegas. So he was there, he flew back here, and he's flying back right after this. So we really appreciate JP coming.
Big week, thank you.
So first of all, I gave you a little introduction, but actually, can you talk about your role, what your responsibility?
Yeah, so as you said, I work for Karen Walker, our CMO. I'm responsible for digital marketing. I just picked up the insights and analytics function, so we're doing that across the marketing organization. And then in my spare time, when Karen needs help, I'm helping out on the strategy and planning and budgets and stuff like that. But primarily the digital marketing, insights and analytics.
Excellent. And a lot of times you hear, especially from vendors, I've got to get to the CMO.
Yeah.
So I think what would be really helpful is understand your interactions with Karen. So what is Karen, and we can talk just about Cisco, obviously don't need to extrapolate it to everybody else.
Sure.
When, Karen tells you we want to do X, what does she do? And then the vendor selection, does she play in it? How does that all kind of work?
It actually works the other way. I go to Karen and I say, we want to do X. And I've got to figure out where we're going to get the money. The way it works is, we set up a roadmap for 2 to 3 years out of the capabilities that we need to deliver on, whether it's audience, data, content, omnichannel, CRM, or insights and analytics. We set out that roadmap for a couple of years. And then Karen, the CIO, and myself, we meet on a monthly basis, and we work through that roadmap and say, all right, these are high priorities. Where does it sit in the in the business business policy? And then on a quarterly basis, we true up all the budgets. So we say, okay, this is how much we've got for change the business. This is how much we've got for run the business. These are our priorities on the change the business. Let's go make that happen. And so, I don't think Karen's ever pushed back on anything that the team needs technology-wise. We've spent about $60 million in the last 2.5 years, so it's a decent chunk of change. She's had to restructure the marketing organization to make money available to do this because she believes in it. So the good news is she's deeply committed to it. She's making the investment. We have to do the prioritization.
Great. And I didn't check. Do we have the graphic, the Cisco graphic, ready to go? Hopefully it's loaded in the system. If not, guys, if you could find it and see if they can put it up there. So we've talked about, and you've published your, Scott Brinker from Chief Martech has, I think he calls it the Stackies, where enterprise companies publish their marketing technologies. And it's fascinating to actually look across, and Joseph published his, so hopefully we can get that up. But when you look at it, you definitely have a mixture of marketing clouds and best of breed. So how do you go about that decision process when you need a new technology?
So we'll come back to the capabilities again. So we've set out these pillars of capabilities, there's 6 of them. And then we're always evaluating. We've got, if you look across Cisco, we've probably got every application that's available in the marketing cloud, or the marketing stack. But we have 36 priority and 9, mission critical. And of course, we've got all the big ones, Adobe, Oracle, Salesforce, Domo for visualization, etc. But where we prioritize for the future is we determine what do we need. So right now, let's give you a sense of where we are right now. We've sorted out each of our channels. So all our paid, owned, earned channels are all sorted out. We've got technology stacks for all of them. What that's turned into is a set of data silos in each part of the stack. So a big priority for us right now is to get a CDP in place, build an orchestration layer that talks into the CDP, build a content engine that will deliver across all of those platforms. Those are very high priority for us right now. The second big priority, for example, is in AI and ML and prediction engines. We need a prediction engine because the more we get into SaaS and cloud and subscription offerings, I need something that can put stuff up, through the machine online automatically. There isn't enough time for a human to look at a report, change the campaign, and then reset the offer. There's just no time for that. So as we're evaluating those, we've determined what are our minimum requirements. We meet with 6 to 8 of the top vendors in the space, and then it's a process of elimination. Typically it takes us 6 to 9 months. We'll run a proof of concept, and then we'll set aside the budget and away we go.
Great, and you'll probably be rushed by a number of
yeah, I figured that was going to happen. Yeah,
and actually on your Stacky, it actually has CDP, I think, under evaluation or something like that.
That's right.
So let's drill down to that one. So can you talk about did you issue an RFP for it?
Not yet.
Okay, so but as far as you understand it, like what are the things where this is really what we need? Oh, great, they're up, so you can refer to it if you want.
Yeah, it's a bit dated, but that's fine.
So this is from last spring, I think it was.
Yeah.
But you can see kind of in the bottom center the CDP. But it's always super interesting to look at the mixture of companies that are in there. It's definitely a mixture of Oracle, Adobe, Salesforce for CRM, and then what I'll call kind of the best of breed. So on the CDP, what are the top things that you're going to be saying, this is what we need?
Yeah, the team's deep into that, and I wouldn't want to preempt them, but from my point of view, what we're doing today is that we take data out of all of our big systems and we just dump it into a large Hadoop cluster, which is really valuable for targeting and segmentation, so it's good up front when you're doing planning for a campaign, but it's terrible for orchestration. And so what we've got to do with the CDP is to be able to build a data platform that talks to all of our main systems, but also has the APIs to be able to orchestrate. And then we need an orchestration engine that's going to put the content in the right place at the right time in the right channel. So we talk about this concept of, can we build a digital pantry so that when we're serving up a meal for the customer, that we've got a robot that can do that. So it's done by ML, picks the content out, matches it with the right contact, and then serves it in the right channel. That's kind of our goal for what we need to do, but we need to build both sides of that. We need to build the customer data platform, but we also need to build a content platform, get the tagging right, and then be able to match the two.
Yep. Excellent. And so, as I mentioned, you're one of these unique companies that you have to run B2B marketing.
Yeah.
So marketing systems that can enable direct salespeople to call on enterprises.
Yeah.
And B2C marketing, so more advertising to drive consumers to drive the purchase, say through channels or whatever it is. When you're looking at your overall stack, do you have to segment, like, okay, well, this is going to be my B2B stack, my B2C stack, or is it, what I need everything all together? How do you?
Actually, it's in the stack if you look at it. So the left-hand side of the stack are all the end-user systems, and we primarily optimize for end-user engagement. That's the currency, if you like, end-user engagement, end-user pipeline and bookings. So that's to the left. And then as you go to the right, we've got a set of systems that we engage partners with, and we use the partner systems also to syndicate campaigns to end users. And then finally, as you go to the far right, it's all the work that we do with CRM and to the sales and through the sales teams. So it's optimized for end user engagement with other platforms that we need to be able to talk to those other audiences.
And so obviously Cisco's had different technologies over the years, and I know I won't bring up the company, but like one legacy company,
one really big legacy company.
Yeah, you were like, man, I gotta rip this system out. Is there
Yeah.
any vendors out there that's actually doing kind of like the newer SaaS versions, et cetera?
Yeah.
When is the breaking point? Like where you say, you know what, I know that we paid $10 million, license, and we're paying this much, and everybody's trained up on it. They know the workflows. When's the breaking point where you say, you know what, we're going to get off that legacy system and move to a newer system?
I've got 3 or 4 scars like that. Those were really difficult. But here's what I'll say: when I see a vendor get to a point where they stop listening, right? The functionality stops for our business transformations. Our business is moving. Our requirements are changing. Even, I've got a big list for Dave when we get connected. There are things that are moving along, and if the vendor has stopped innovating and their roadmap has dried up and we're still paying a boatload of money for it, that's the point at which I go, okay, it's time we gotta, and there are alternatives that are more cost effective, have a lot more innovation, and typically are smaller and moving faster. We will consider alternatives. I'm in a discussion right now for a platform that we may walk away from, and it could hurt us a lot when we do, because the training is in place, the workflows are in place, but when you go, you go. And frankly, after we made the move, I'd wished I'd made it earlier, because hanging on for a platform that's going nowhere actually ends up killing the organization even more.
Yeah.
We go backwards.
Are there any, say, in the last few years, any new vendors that you've put in that you said, oh my God, this was life-changing, or the ROI is through the roof, that you want to publicly say?
Yeah.
That this was an amazing company?
There are a couple of things that I look for in what I consider a successful technology rollout. One is obviously ROI. That's something it's number one. But I also look for adoption and people coming to it and using it and going, this is incredible, right? So the one technology that I will shout out to, and Josh James is gonna thank me for this, I hope, is Domo. We put Domo in, replaced a previous platform, and the speed at which we got adoption, I think we were at the moment we launched, we had 600 users on it, and that was at launch, right? So everyone had heard about it and come out of the woodwork. And then when we went to production, it was like 1,000 users, and everyone was using it. Today, a year later, we have 12,000 reports on Domo. We've visualized just about everything in the marketing stack, and it's super fast and it's mobile. So
awesome.
Josh will love me for this, but at a certain point, he just did a very good job with the customer success piece of it, which meant we got the adoption really fast. It's not been true for all our vendors.
Yeah, that's great. And his brother, who's a co-CEO of Zephyr, just went out of the room. So we'll have to tell Zach about that so he can convey it to Josh.
That's great.
And Josh was, I don't remember if we remember this, it was my former boss.
Yes, I know, at Omniture. Yeah.
And the funny thing there was, I think it was a dozen years ago, we announced a product that was called the CMO Dashboard. And it was a services engagement. There was no software.
Right.
But Josh, of course, says, we are a product company. Let's build a product. Or pointed at me, leading corp dev, if you can find a company that has these capabilities, go buy it. And so we surveyed the landscape, and what we found was it really needed 3 things. It needed a data ingestion, kind of ETL layer.
Yeah.
It needed, once you get it in, normalize and do the analytics. And then the third is actually, how do you make it usable by a human being? The visualization aspect.
Right. It was very good. Yeah.
And we found that there were companies that could do 1, 2, or 3, or maybe 1.5, but nobody could do it all. So when I reported that back to Josh, I think that was the light bulb that came on for Domo. So
we saw the same thing. Yeah.
So I'm thrilled actually for Josh that you've had such success there. What in general? Actually, one of the things that obviously we've been very focused on, data and identity. We've talked somewhat about data. What about identity solutions? How do you look at identity? Do you create an identity graph and all that? Like, how do you approach identity in general?
By definition, I think we have that in our Hadoop cluster. I mean, if you think about all the first-party, third-party, and now increasingly second-party data that we're feeding into the Hadoop cluster and then putting all the web stream connections to it, all the different channel information on it. We have it there. And that's great for targeting, it's great for building audiences, it's great for building segments, but I still can't orchestrate in real time. So it's one thing having the ID graph, it's another thing being able to actually activate it, and I think Dave mentioned it earlier, activate it in such a way that I can do it real time. And that's what we're really chasing. I don't need to know much more about the customer. I think we have most of it.
Yep.
The question is, how do we turn that into action?
Yep. And so as a vendor, obviously, when I came from software companies, obviously our philosophy was always, okay, let's get as many products together that logically fit together and can integrate so that we can sell them to the marketing organization so it's one throat to choke, et cetera, and be able to, cross-sell products. So as the guy who owns the purse strings, do you give, since you do have 3 marketing clouds in there, if there is, a marketing cloud product that's competing with an independent best-of-breed company, do you lean towards the marketing clouds, or do you say, you know what, it's like, let's not bias this at all, I just want the best technology?
No, if I had a choice, I would build it into the stack as much as possibly can. But the reality, and I think, hang on, man, before you take that one step further, the reality of all the 3 big players really don't have what we need going forward. And so even if I were to glue the 3 together, I don't think we'd be there. There are plenty of smaller players that are innovating at a rate that the big players haven't been able to do. And frankly, as I look at the roadmap of the 3 big players, I'm not entirely convinced they're even considering some of the things we're considering. So the answer is, I think it's going to be full stack for components of it, and then lots of still best of breed. I think we've still got another 3 or 5 years of best of breed. What's frustrating for me is if you're in finance, you've got 1 stack. If you're in sales, you've got 1 stack. If you're in HR, you've got 1 stack. And if you're in marketing, you've got about 20, right? Or 9 at least. So it's actually, it's exciting, but it's depressing at the same time because a lot of integration that we have to think about across all our channels.
Right. So you mentioned when you're talking about your top priorities, data, and then the second one was around, AI, ML, predictions, et cetera.
Yeah.
One of the things, just as far as my personal philosophy, I've seen definitely, predictive analytics, ML, AI, whatever you want to call it, kind of built into applications so that they can make that application better. I haven't yet seen more general, like, let's plug in AI and make it all work. Obviously, the CDP category, that's one where they're like, hey, if we get the data in one place, then we can apply the machine learning. So as you're evaluating the CDPs, are you linking the data, CDP evaluation with the AI, or have you?
Absolutely. Actually, we're doing the CDP evaluation, the data models, and the AI that we need to build and buy, because we will build some, and we've just hired a bunch of data scientists to help us with that, and the CX piece of it as well. So we actually have an initiative internally called CX.ai, and the notion is that the outcome is customer experience. The outcome is to be able to activate in the paid, owned, and earned channels, but using the CDP and the machine learning to be able to inform what the experience should be.
Right.
So they're happening together, and that's one of the benefits we have of having done what we've done, which is I have a guy in my team called Chad Reese, and we jokingly call him the CMTO, right? He's the Chief Marketing Technology Officer, and he's got all of those stacks. So he's got the analytics stack, he's got the CDP, he's also got the ML and AI engines that we're building.
Great. Do you want to repeat that name?
I don't think you'll forgive me. You can come through me, but Chad Reese, yeah.
Yeah, good. So, just in the closing minute or so, since there obviously are a lot of vendors, just in general, what are your recommendations where they think they have the solution for you? What's the best way to approach, a Cisco or Cisco-like company?
Yeah. Can I say, don't send email? It's kind of pointless. Look, I think we have done a good job of making ourselves available to look at solutions. I was down the road here actually with Andersen several months ago, where they took us through a group of 20 solutions, 15 minutes each, and we got a good sense of what's out there in the market. We actually went deep with a couple of the players there. But if you've got an interest, I will offer my email address and send me something now, right? And what we'll do is, and I've been thinking about doing this actually for a while, is to put like a solution day together or a half day together and have you come in and just in those 6 categories talk about what you may have in those 6 categories. And we'll publish what those 6 categories are. But we do need to hear from the industry because, the only way we're going to get innovation is if we're utilizing stuff that's slightly leading edge. And then, of course, the big players will share roadmaps with us.
Yeah. Excellent. All right.
All right, thanks for the time.
Oh, yeah. Thanks so much.